Nicholas darted out from behind his mom with enough speed to flutter her dress. His tiny feet thundered over the floor until he came to an abrupt stop right in front of his favorite person. He had to lean his head all the way back to look into Derek's eyes. Derek looked down to meet the gaze. Nicholas resisted the urge to hug him and instead clutched at the collar of his own shirt.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's your room. From how much Nicholas struggled to explain his apology, it was obvious he wasn't at a point where he understood why being together at all times wasn't a completely fantastic idea. All that got through was that he'd upset his brother and that had, in turn, upset him. Nicholas bit his lip and moved his hands to pull at the bottom of his shirt instead of the top. The best he could come up with next was simply repeating himself.
Sorry.
Sorry. Derek's lips quirked just as a bit he patiently listened to his little brother. You should say sorry to him too. Hark helped you a lot today. Nicholas instantly twisted his head towards you and echoed the word. He was very serious. Sorry, Hark. Thank you, Nicholas. No worries. I appreciate that you apologized. You smiled at him. You had to look away out of shyness. I appreciate that you apologized. Nicholas hopped up over the pads of his feet as a nervous but hopeful energy came over him. Your reaction was the first positive sign he'd gotten. When people say they're sorry, and I really feel like it is a good learning point for them, I wouldn't say, oh, it's okay. Because if it really wasn't okay, if it really was something that they need to learn, I'm not going to say, oh, that's okay. It'd be like, thank you, or I appreciate your apology. Like, thank you, or I appreciate your apology. Because I want to be able to really drive in that what you did probably wasn't okay. And saying sorry for it is a good thing because it's probably something you shouldn't repeat. Your reaction was the first, especially if it was something that, you could have avoided. That could have been avoided if you were able to learn from it. Nicholas hopped up on his pads of his feet as a nervous but hopeful energy came over him. Your reaction was the first positive sign he'd gotten. The smallest Suarez glanced between you and Derek unsurely. He let his shirt go and balled his hands into fists. I'm sorry, Derek. I'm sorry, Hark. Nicholas put everything he had into willing whatever problem he'd caused to be fixed and into people not feeling bad anymore. The emotional display of regret moved someone in the room to speak.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, too. Derek snorted a laugh at the unexpectedness of the interjection. What did you even do? I don't know. The middle child looked down at the puzzle in front of him again, but he was staring through the pieces as if they weren't there. He may have been sorry for not helping to keep Nicholas from, helicoptering over Derek the whole time. Maybe that's what he was feeling sorry for. Not that that's his responsibility, but maybe that's why he feels guilty. He murmured just barely loud enough to hear where you were standing. You and Hark had to watch me today, too. Derek's hesitancy completely crumbled, and his usual familial dynamic came back in full force. Aw, George, you don't have to apologize for that. I like to have some time by myself, or with my friends, but I never want to stop having my little bros. It's just, moderation. Everything in moderation. Nicholas's massively wide eyes sparkled. For the first time since they were reunited, he carefully reached out to Derek and gripped his soaking wet jeans. Derek reached down to gently pat his baby brother's head as he did probably every day. Neither boy cared that this time the hand was damp. I would have cared a little bit. Instead, they both smiled at the other with unwavering affection. No matter what visions happened, it was inevitable that it would end that way because they both loved their family equally and deeply. Another person took a turn to cut in as Mr. Suarez spoke up with vigor.
Let's race!
Derek, Hark, let's race! What? Derek chuckled at your confusion and switched his head pat into a full-on hair ruffle. Nicholas giggled excitedly along with his brother. Dad is asking us to play a video game, an old kart racer he likes. It better not be Mario Kart, because that's not old. Yes, and I will win it. Derek's dad carefully tacked that on. It couldn't be forgotten, clearly. George could be player 4. Mrs. Suarez was the only one who truly kept her distance during the reconciliation between Derek and Nicholas, but now she joined the rest of the family. When she was close enough to you and Derek to whisper, she pressed a hand to the corner of her mouth and winked conspiratorially. I'll give Nico an unplugged controller. Derek grinned at that point and shifted into giving the longest. That's a strategy we've done before, too. Derek grinned at that point and shifted into giving the longest strands of Nicholas's hair a friendly tug, but he didn't accept the invite immediately. He included you in the discussion. What do you think, Hark? Are you kidding? I think we should race. He nodded at you and turned to answer his father. All right, let's race. Derek's mom, I'm kind of surprised that wasn't a choice, but whatever. I would have picked racing anyway. Big gamer that I am. Derek's mom encouraged you and Derek with her words and Nicholas with her hands, taking him by the shoulders. This time she wouldn't be letting him get away from her.
Go on.
Go get changed. We'll plug it in so it's ready by the time you're back. Or unplug it. Thanks, Mom. Derek's mood continued to be buoyed by the support of his parents, and he left to get changed while walking as tightly as he could in his wet clothes, as lightly as he could. You didn't know where anything was, so you had to leave the prep work to Mrs. Suarez and George. The two of them got right into it, opening drawers and pulling out cords. You found something to do by keeping Nicholas company with Mrs. Suarez. He was on his best behavior and didn't whine for Derek even once. And as promised, the Suarez's dark purple GameCube was fully connected with 4 controllers, plugged in by the time Derek strolled into the living room. A familiar shout filled the whole room. All was right in the world.
Derek's back!
There we go. Yep, Nico, I'm here. Mrs. Suarez was on the carpet with Nicholas in her lap. She'd already passed him a controller, and she was having a blast pressing the clicky buttons, despite the fact that they did nothing except make a little noise. George and Mr. Suarez took seats on the couch. George tucked himself closely against his father, so the two were only taking up one side. The other half of the couch was reserved for you and Derek. Derek dove into the spot next to George. He got settled in nicely against the plush back of the couch and folded his legs up across the cushion. You got in the final place and relaxed against the armrest. Oh look, it is the GameCube! George passed one controller to Derek, which Derek gave to you. Then he handed over a second, which Derek kept. Mr. Suarez filled you in on a decision he and his second son had made.
What do you think?
Junior and I are on a team. You and Hart can play together. What do you think? Derek tilted his head your way. He lifted his shoulders and added on to his dad's briefing. It's a double racer. One drives, the other controls items. I remember that. Cool. Sounds cool. I love that game. You smiled understandingly. This is gonna be good. You shrugged acceptingly. I love that game. Me too. It's me and you then. Always. Always, Derek. The deal was sealed. Packs had been made. George perked up and shook Mr. Suarez's arm. Hey, Dad, we're Team Suarez. Yes, we are. We're Team Suarangel? Suarangel? Derek's fingers were on the buttons, and he was leaning over his crossed legs in anticipation for the game to begin. He replied, unbothered. Cool for you guys. With his gaze still glued to the TV, a cheeky grin pulled up at his lips. Derek spoke one more thing under his breath that was meant just for him, but you were sitting close enough to still catch it. I don't mind being Team Angel. He giggled sweat sweetly. Being squished into a couch so close to him felt even warmer. All 4 players making up the 2 teams chose their characters, carts, positions, and the track set. To start, Derek and Mr. Suarez were driving. You and George had item launching duty. 3, 2, 1. The carts launched across the starting lines with both drivers getting an extra boost. Team Angel and Team Suarez were off down the colorful jungle road. There would be 3 laps before the race was over. Lap 1 was a frantic race for the top spot. The carts were neck and neck to each other over every hill and around each curve, neither getting ahead or falling behind. Attacks were constantly exchanged and buttons were pressed at rapid speeds. That included Nicholas as he watched the race and tried to use his controller the way everyone else was. You wondered which part of the game he thought he was impacting. This is so relatable. We definitely did that with my younger cousins back in the day. By lap 2, Team Angel had taken a strong lead. Almost nothing from the Suarez camp could reach your cart. Once he passed the line to start a lap 3, Derek was cocky enough to bring out the smack talk. I thought you were gonna win, Dad. Mr. Suarez's expression was perfectly content. More than that, it was serene. And it was with that calm face Derek's father carefully reached across George and then, in the blink of an eye, locked his large hand around the comparatively tiny controller Derek held. Hey! The cart you and Derek shared went out of control, careening off the dirt path into a pit. Hey, that's cheating! You had to wait for the game to finish you out and place you back on the road. This is totally Mario Kart. Team Suarez rolled on right past.
See,
I'm winning now. Derek's dad was boldly unapologetic. He grinned like a child who had just found out you could get a hole-in-one at putt-putt golf if you just dropped the ball in the hole. Totally cheating, of course. You're cheating now? Derek sputtered with laughter made of equal parts amusement and disbelief. He yanked his arms towards his chest to fight for freedom, but Mr. Suarez's grip was unmovable. We're running interference, huh? From a distance, Mrs. Suarez mused over the situation that had begun to unfold. Her husband stole a look at where she'd been sitting. She was gone, leaving only Nicholas on the floor. Mr. Suarez lifted one thick eyebrow and pressed the other lower. He could only puzzle over what it might mean, until it all became clear about the world going dark for only him. Derek's mom had crawled over behind the couch, popped up from behind, and slipped her fingers under Mr. Suarez's glasses. He was caught completely off guard. Ugh! Her father stared from the shock of surprise attack that wasn't committed by himself. Yeah, Mom! Derek hadn't gotten his controller back. Mr. Suarez was stubborn in his hold, but his dad was just as incapacitated as a driver. Yeah, Mom! An echo of Derek's cheer came from behind. All of the excitement in the air had stirred a fire in Nicholas. He wasn't just playing with an off controller anymore. He crawled on all fours at a rapid pace until he reached the couch and launched himself right at his dad's stomach. It was powerful enough that Mr. Suarez sprung forward and Mrs. Suarez's hands were yanked off him. Oof. But Derek's controller was finally freed. Mr. Suarez had to let go of both controllers to catch his squirming child. Nicholas would not be contained. He climbed up over his dad's shoulders and wrapped his arms around Mr. Suarez's face. In sweet justice, the Team Suarez cart flew off a bridge into the abyss below. Yeah, Nicholas! George placed his own controller in his lap with a shake of his head and a smirk. Team Suarez wasn't winning this race. Derek rolled his shoulders and poked a tongue out to the corner of his mouth in concentration. He was back in business. See, now Derek's being a kid. He's just being a kid. The Team Angel cart cross-corrected and raced towards the finish line in the final lap. The youngest Suarez hugged all four of his limbs around his dad even tighter from the thrill of seeing Derek speed his car around the track. Yeah! Items weren't needed now, but you were just as invested in watching your cart make the last stretch. And Derek brought it home, crossing the finish line. We won! Derek threw his fists into the air, pumped them back down to his chest, and turned to you with a palm held out for you to smack. I would love to give you a smack, Derek, just not that kind. And not the violent one either. You clapped his hand, you hugged him, you gave him a thumbs up, you used your hands to shyly cover your face, you hugged him. You ignored the hand and flung your arms around his neck. He squeezed you back, pressing his face into your shoulder. You were victorious. Oh yes, I was victorious. In more ways than one. We won! Nicholas, of course, thought they won too. Nicholas sent his arms up towards the sky, a perfect imitation of his eldest brother. Mr. Suarez used the opportunity to collect his son from off his shoulders and placed Nicholas into his lap. He pet his son's hair and he laughed breathlessly but full of joy. Okay, I lost. Next race. This time Derek repeated the phrase, still raring to go. But that was naturally followed by the original copycat. Nicholas clapped gleefully and snuggled up against the seat on his father's chest. Next race! George picked up his abandoned controller once more. His voice was quieter, but no less sincere. Yeah, next race. In all the commotion, you'd completely forgotten you could have switched to the driver role to take over for Derek at any time. George could have, too, for his dad, but you were glad it went the way it did. Team Angel got its win with the assistance of Team Pile Drivers, Nicholas and Mrs. Suarez. And the game was just getting started. Next race. Race next. Okay, you're not in agreement. I'll say, next race. You couldn't help joining the pattern. It got big smiles from the family. Well, now this is a real party. There's still pizza in the fridge. Who wants leftovers? Ugh, cold pizza. Ugh. The suggestion of food riled Nicholas up even more. He clambered over his dad's shoulders for the second time, tugging on his beard and accidentally knocking his glasses off. Mr. Suarez wheezed out a chuckle. Nicholas stared out from over the couch into the kitchen. He wanted that pizza, but couldn't be the first to ask. I do. Pizza, please. I will have leftovers, you said just for Nicholas' sake. You looked over at the other brothers. If she's offering, I'll put it in the microwave. It's not going to be that great reheated, but it's fine. I'll say pizza, please. Pizza, please.
Same.
Me too. George and Mr. Suarez chimed in their own request. Can I have some, Mom? I would like some pizza, my beloved wife who never turns against me. She snickered with a glint in her eyes. Of course. Start the game. I'll heat it up. All 4 of the Suarez men spoke in unison. Thanks, Mom. Thank you, too.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. The players all resumed their positions and took up their tools, slightly sweaty GameCube controllers. When the second race started, the grin on Derek's face was one of the most radiant you've seen in the whole day. His dad, mom, and brothers, too, really knew how to make Derek happy. That brought a smile to your face, too. From getting a window into Derek's life, and from what you knew from your own, spending every day with the same person could take a lot of patience, but there were a lot of perks, too. Your time at the Suarez household ended with family, food, and fun. There wasn't much more you could have asked for. That was a much longer moment than I'm used to. I feel like that was the longest one. Maybe it was just as long as the boardwalk. I don't remember. But yeah, that was cool. I really loved learning about even deeper into his dynamic, his family dynamic with not just his siblings, but also his parents. And I really appreciated that they really gave you a very real, relatable, and very realistic conflict with Nicholas. Wanting Derek all to himself. I mean, admittedly, after a while, of course it would definitely gotten on my nerves. I would have been frustrated, sooner. I wish I was more of a patient older brother to my younger sibling, because I do remember for the longest time, we were super, super, super close, and he probably was just as clingy with me as Nicholas was. The problem is, it got to the point where I was so frustrated at him always wanting to spend time with me and always hanging out with him that I sort of blew up at him at some point. I blew up with him and I locked myself in my room because I just needed a break. And unfortunately, after doing that, our relationship was never the same. I think that's when my brother and I started to be more rivals. And we started bickering more and we started fighting more. I don't know if it was really just that one incident, but it felt like that's where it started. And so I wish that I was more patient with my brother, because we're fine now. We have a fine relationship now that we're adults. But growing up, it could have been better, I think. And maybe if I was more like Derek, I could have. But at the same time, it's also important to be realistic and to just embrace the fact that you are human and that you do have limits and you do need your space and you do need your privacy at times. And just because you want to break and not want to be attached to every one of your family members' hips all the time doesn't make you a bad person, and it certainly doesn't make you love them less. So no, I definitely, as someone who is an older sibling myself, I definitely enjoyed that moment a lot. And I also, what I love about that specific moment is that we did get some really awesome, valuable, and impactful Derek one-on-one moments that I felt like we didn't get with a couple of the other moments. So I really appreciate that. I think it had just the right amount of main protagonist and Derek one-on-one moments, and still include all the other stuff from the plot or the story about the family dynamic. So that's definitely a solid one for me, I would say. So far, my favorite one is still Boardwalk. Boardwalk, I think, is still my favorite. Maybe I'm partial because that was the first one I played, and there's a lot of fun things to... The fun thing about that is we weren't at Sunset Bird, a totally different change of pace, totally different location. So, yeah, very cool. I'm really looking forward to the soiree. But before we go to the soiree, we're going to do one more moment from the base game. All right, so the soiree is the last new Derek DLC, at least for this step. But I did want to go back and go to the mall, which also featured Derek, and see if there's any changes, any difference there, especially since, we're not really close with COVID all. curious to see how this plays out. Lee's visit today turned out to be more involved than you expected. After overhearing where the Holden family was going, Lee insisted on seeing Mr. Holden shop firsthand. An hour later, and Lee was busy looking at every item on display. Because Cove's dad offered supplies, lessons, and tours, his shop had all the scuba-related stuff you could imagine. Fins, masks, suits, and snorkels. After circling on the shop, you finally stopped and looked at the whole room. This was your first time you'd been here too. It wasn't often that you tagged along to hang out the shop. You'd spent a lot of time over the years. Honestly, I don't really spend a lot of time with the Holdens, so this was the first time you'd been here too. The mystery was finally gone. Over the years, you'd heard bits and pieces about what Cove's dad did from Cove, Derek, and Mr. Holden. And now, here you were, standing smack dab in the middle of it. You were bursting with excitement. You were in good spirits. This was a pleasant surprise. You felt okay. Not your first choice, but not bad. You were unhappy. Was this really all you were going to do? I felt okay. Not your first choice, but not bad. It was cool to finally see the shop, but you wouldn't object to doing something else today. Lee was still busy poking through the various wetsuits displayed, so you decided to see what Derek and Cove were doing. They were too absorbed in their conversation to notice you standing near them, leaning against the counter. You were able to pick up the topic quickly.
Anyway,
There's my boy. There's my man. Soon to be a man. My dad told me the new stuff is selling like crazy. Yeah, the material has this new blend with less neoprene. My dad says people are really interested in it. It brought a smile to your face hearing that the shop was doing well. You decided to keep listening. You decided to join in with the conversation. You couldn't resist teasing the boys. I'll tease the boys. I think I figured out Mr. Holden and Mr. Suarez's secret to running this place. Cove crossed his arms and looked at you with an eyebrow raised, while Derek gave you a genuinely confused look. You motioned with your hand for them to lean in close. Clearly, they realized they could sell anything with all the handsome faces in this place. Cove's face immediately went red over the suggestion. He looked away, shaking his head. Derek took it in with stride. Even though I'm not close with Cove, I do consider him a handsome young man. Just like Derek. And that's why I'm here, learning from the best. But really, there's just so much to think about with a business. It's crazy. No matter how much I come, I still don't think I get it. Cove hummed and nodded in agreement, causing a good-humored laugh from Derek. I thought you only liked the scuba diving part, not the job part. That's just the best part. I think about other things too.
I gotcha.
Cool. The business side. Running it. That's my favorite. Out of the corner of your eye, you caught movement and you realized that Lee was now standing next to you. When your dads retire, do you guys think you're gonna carry on the store? Both sons shrugged in unison.
Well,
There's tons of things I could do. My dad thinks so too. He doesn't want me to plan on working here forever. Cove's gaze fell to the floor. You could see the conflict flashing across his face.
I don't know.
It's a lot. Being the real boss is something I'm totally in charge. If my mom's had their own business, I'd take over it. If my mom's had one, I wouldn't want to take over either. I can't run a business. I wouldn't want to take over someone else's shop either. I want to do my own thing. Then do you think your dads would let me take over his shop? No matter what you both do, shop or shop, you'll be amazing. I think I might have mentioned this the last time I played this. Moment is that my mom really was pushing me to be a doctor. She's a nurse, so she's in the medical field, and I had zero interest. I was like, I really do not have any interest in being a doctor. And she was disappointed, but it's not my life. I love you, Mom. Not my life. Gotta do what makes me happy, which is what I would encourage everyone doing. I want my kids to do what makes them happy. But it doesn't mean I'm going to try to exposing them to things exposing them to certain interests that we share. Like food, like cooking, like baking, like eating. Fortunately, so far, Brody definitely we have that in common. The cooking part, at least. I wouldn't want to take over someone else's shop either. I want to do my own thing. I want to decide what I do myself, not just follow behind what my parents ended up picking. Totally. Cove's parents left the back office and came over, catching your attention. Sorry, kids. It looks like it's going to be a long one. I know usually others hold the fort down, but I really need to stay here today. I know you just wanted a little visit. It'd be boring getting stuck all day because of me. Kyra can take my car and go back to the neighborhood. Cove and Derek gave him an understanding look. Mr. Holden crossed his arms and flashed you all a big smile, trying to lift the mood. The one condition is that someone has to remember to come back for me later. You don't get to strand me here, no matter how funny that might be. Kyra laughed and gave a thumbs up. Mr. Holden seemed satisfied with that. He moved on with explanation. Derek, your dad also has his hands full today, so he doesn't have time to run you back home.
It's okay.
That's all right, sir. The title sir got an awkward chuckle out of Cliff, which was cut short when Kyra elbowed him teasingly.
What do you think?
You already said I could borrow your car. Why don't I take all the kids somewhere fun for the afternoon?
Absolutely.
That's fine with me. Just please come back eventually. Sometime today, Kyra. After multiple jokes about being left with no ride, you had to wonder if that actually happened in their past together. Pretty confident it did. For you, my good sir, I swear, across my heart. Happy with the promise, Cliff took out his black wallet and offered a $50 bill to Kyra. Here, in case you need gas or anything else while you're out. Kyra smiled knowingly and accepted the bill without hesitation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cove's dad stuck the wallet into his back pocket while he waved with the free hand. Okay, time for me to jump back into work. Have fun for me. Bye, Dad. Bye. Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye, Mr. Holden. Goodbye, sirs and madams. He left the room with a wink and flare, disappearing into the employees-only area of the shop. But we didn't get to see Mr. Suarez. When Mr. Holden was out of sight, Kyra silently strolled over to the counter and carefully placed the $50 bill there. She turned back around and beamed a large smile at you and the others. Come on, gang. Let's see if this town has a mall.
Yeah.
Yes! Unable to catch your excitement, Lee actually jumped with joy, while Cove and Derek just grinned. There wasn't a mall in your hometown, but Mr. Holden's store wasn't in Sunset Bird. It might be possible to find a mall out here. You felt pumped. You felt okay about that. You really don't want to go there. I feel pumped. Heck yeah. Let's go. She quickly herded the group out of the store and to the car.
Cool.
As the driver, I get to choose my partner in crime. Naturally, I bestow the position of shotgun to my baby. Her comment had both Derek and Lee snickering. Cove rolled his eyes at his mom and opened the front passenger door. You decided to stick up for Tove. You decided to jokingly complain of the special treatment. You were fine with that. You kept quiet. I'm like, I keep quiet, whatever. Silently, you watched Cove and his mom interact. It still felt odd at times to actually see her. I'll take the middle seat. I'll take the middle seat. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want a window seat. You two can have them. So much like Derek. Are you cool with that? You thought it was odd that anyone would give up a window seat, but you know Derek tried to be especially polite when he was a guest. You nodded. I typically offer to take the middle seat as well.
Fantastic.
It's good. Sounds like we're all in agreement. As an extrovert, I don't mind being the one that's in the middle of everybody in the back. So, it helps to be an extrovert. Everyone squeezes into the car, buckling in, and Kyra turned the radio on. She set it to a top 40s pop station. You were into it. You did not like it. You asked if the radio station could be changed. Now I'm into it. Quickly, you recognized the song playing. It was a new one by an artist you were listening to a lot recently. It wasn't long until your group realized that they were lost, but after driving in enough circles, Kyra's struggle paid off when she found the local mall. There were more cheers from Lee as Kyra pulled into a parking spot. Once your group had made it inside, the first order of business on this trip was checking what this mall actually had. Where should we go?
Ooh.
I think I see a makeup store up ahead. She rolled up on her tiptoes to get a better view. Meanwhile, Derek was eyeing the directory. There's a chocolate shop. Seriously, we have to go there. Yes, wait, and we need to find a decent jewelry shop. I need new hair ties and barrettes.
Nice.
We've also got to get at least look for a game store. There's tons of things you can't get anywhere but a store that's just for video games. Except this is before Steam, I would think. Hey, what are you thinking, Cove? I want to look at the fish in the pet store. You could have guessed that much. Anywhere else? He smiled with some bashfulness. The food court. Same. All about the food. That is something me and Cove definitely have in common. What about you, Hark? Clothing store. Accessory shop. Makeup store. Video game store is up there too. The chocolate shop. The pet store. Camping and outdoor supplies. The food court. Bookstore and art supplies. Music shop. A video game store. The food court. And just because Derek wanted it, the chocolate shop. Music shop, art supplies, bookstore, camping, pet store, makeup store, accessories, clothing store. I like bookstores. And that's really all that interested in you. I do like going to clothing stores too, but back at this age, not so much. And that's all that really interested you. That's certainly a list. Good thing we have all afternoon. Yeah. I have my own stops I want to make. Let's agree to regroup here at 7 p.m.
What?
You're not coming with us? We're all in the same building. You won't be as alone as you think. I'll only be a few minutes away at most. You're old enough to enjoy the mall without me hovering.